"You're not our dad. Our real father is just busy." The words landed with the same dull thud they always did, like a knife that had dulled from overuse but still found its way into the same scarred flesh. Madison's voice carried no tremor, no hesitation, just cold certainty. She said it in front of her friends once, a casual dismissal, like swatting away a fly. She said it in front of her mother more times than I can count, and Emily always responded the same way, her face caught between apology and denial. "They're just teenagers. They don't mean it." But they did mean it. They meant it every single time. I am 45 years old, divorced once already, a man who never had children of his own. When I married Emily, she was 38, and she came with 2 daughters, Madison, 17 now, and Haley, 15. From the very beginning, the girls looked at me with a distance I thought time might heal. I told myself they just needed proof that I would stay, that I wasn't like their father who drifted in and out of their lives like a ghost who only materialized when there were gifts to hand out or photos to be taken. So I stayed. I stayed and I paid. Every month, without fail, I shouldered what Tom, their biological father, abandoned. School trips paid. Summer programs paid. Orthodontists, doctors, medications paid. New iPhones when the old ones cracked. Laptops for school projects. Furniture to replace what Emily said was outdated. If a bill arrived with their names attached, I covered it. If an expense threatened to disappoint them, I absorbed it. I told myself this was what fathers did. They filled the silence with action. They proved themselves not with words but with sacrifices. I thought one day they would see it, that when they looked back, when they were older, they would remember the man who made sure their lives never carried the weight of scarcity. But time has a way of hardening coldness into cruelty. In the beginning, the girls didn't acknowledge me much at all. Silence at the dinner table, indifference when I tried to join in their conversations. But over the years, indifference became mockery. They introduced me to their friends not as a stepfather, not even as family, but as mom's boyfriend, as if marriage were just a formality they had decided didn't count. I still remember one evening when Haley asked Emily for money to go to a concert. Emily glanced at me, waiting for me to agree. I said yes, as I always did. Haley grabbed the bills from the counter, muttered, "Thanks, Mom," and walked away. I stopped her, half joking but not really. "You know where that money comes from, right?" She didn't even look back. "Yeah, Mom's purse." That's when I understood. To them, I wasn't even the wallet. I was the invisible hand that kept the purse full. The small slights gathered like dust in corners, easy to ignore until they formed something heavy, something suffocating. The night Madison sneered, "He's not family, our dad's just busy," was only the loudest version of what had been said in countless smaller ways for years. And Emily defended them every time. "They're just teenagers." She would say it like a spell, a phrase meant to explain away every bruise they left on me. "They're still adjusting. It's not personal." But when someone tells you repeatedly you're not family, when the woman you married does nothing but excuse it, how long before those words start to feel true? I thought patience would save me, that if I kept paying, kept showing up, kept proving myself, eventually respect would grow. But the respect never came. Only entitlement. The house became a stage for their contempt. Madison would roll her eyes whenever I suggested something as simple as family dinner. Haley once joked to her sister, just loud enough for me to hear, that I should be grateful to even sit at the table. When I tried to discipline them, something small like asking them to clean up after themselves, they would glance at Emily, waiting for her to repeat my words before they obeyed. And she always did. My voice only mattered once it passed through her mouth. It was humiliating. To live in a home where I paid every bill, yet my authority held less weight than the squeak of their bedroom doors. Still I stayed. Still I paid. I told myself this was what love demanded: patience, endurance, sacrifice. I told myself the wounds would heal, that the girls would grow out of their cruelty, that Emily would one day acknowledge the imbalance. But the truth is simple. Cruelty tolerated is cruelty invited. And then came the breaking point. It was during an argument with Emily, one of the many small wars that had become our evenings. I had confronted her about Madison introducing me to her friends again as Mom's boyfriend. I told her how humiliating it was, how it erased everything I had done for them. Emily snapped back with words sharper than any knife her daughters had ever wielded. "You're not their father." It wasn't just the words. It was the venom in them, the way her eyes hardened when she said it, the finality of it. 3 years of carrying her children on my back. And in that instant, she stripped it all away. That night, I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I gathered every receipt I had kept. Stacks of paper, tens of thousands of dollars accounted for in neat lines and bank statements. I laid them out across the dining table, a ledger of sacrifices no one had asked for but everyone had taken. When Emily walked in, I looked her in the eye and said the words that had been forming in silence for years. "From now on, I'll cover food and utilities. Nothing else. If they want luxuries, ask their father." She froze, her mouth opening and closing, but no defense came this time. Maybe she saw the truth laid bare in those receipts. Maybe she saw the cold resolve in my face. Either way, she didn't argue. The silence in that room was heavier than any scream. For the first time in years, I felt something shift inside me. Not rage, not despair, but clarity. They had told me what I wasn't. Emily had confirmed it. Now I would show them what I wouldn't be. Their unending source of comfort without respect. That was the night I began to pull back. That was the night I decided their contempt would cost them something. And though none of them realized it yet, the collapse had already begun *n. It didn't take long for the change to show. The very next week, Madison came to me with a request. She wanted money for a school trip, something extravagant. A week in another state, hotel costs, group dinners, all wrapped up in glossy brochures about educational opportunities. I had paid for every trip before this one, without hesitation. This time, I didn't even let her finish the pitch. "Ask your dad." The words fell flat in the room, as if the air itself recoiled. Madison blinked, confused at first, then offended. She tried again, reminding me that Tom never paid, that he was always late, always absent. I repeated myself, "Ask your dad." She stormed off, muttering insults under her breath. A few hours later, Haley tried her hand, asking for new clothes for the dance. My answer didn't change. "Ask your dad." It was almost satisfying, those 3 words. They felt like a wee *p*n, like armor, like justice. 4 years I had been their provider and their punching bag all in one. Now, for the first time, I was handing them back to the man they swore was their only true father. Tom answered the call at first, promising Emily he would cover the expenses. For a brief, naive moment, I thought perhaps he would step up. But predictably, within days he disappeared again. Calls unanswered, promises unfulfilled. That's when the storm began. Complaints poured in like rain against glass. Madison whined about missing her trip. Haley sulked about not having the right dress. Emily snapped at me, then at them, then at everyone, her voice sharp and frantic as the walls of the house seemed to close in. Every dinner turned into an argument. Every morning began with slammed doors and cold shoulders. And I watched, silent, detached. The ledger in my mind grew clearer with each passing day. I saw them, all 3 of them, flailing without the safety net I had provided, and for the first time I didn't feel pity. I felt vindication. Then came the moment I had been building toward, the act that would finally, irreversibly sever the illusion that had bound me to that house. It was a Saturday morning. Emily was out running errands. The girls were still asleep. I walked through the house with quiet deliberation, gathering everything I had bought with my money. The furniture in their rooms, mine. The expensive gadgets on their desks, mine. Even the paperwork tucked away in drawers, receipts for every bill and document proving ownership. I collected it all. One by one, I carried the items outside, loading them into my truck. The process took hours, but I didn't rush. Each trip up and down the stairs was a ritual. Each item I lifted a reminder that I had been the true foundation of that household. Without me, there was nothing. By the time the girls awoke, Half their rooms were empty. Madison stood in the hallway, hair tangled, her face pale with disbelief. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice rising. I didn't stop moving. I didn't look at her. I carried her gaming console past her and out the door. "You don't belong in our house," she screamed after me, her voice cracking with fury. "You're nothing to us, and soon we'll get rid of you." I set the box down in the truck bed and finally turned to face her. My voice was calm, almost gentle. "You're right. I don't belong here. That's why I'm leaving first." Her mouth opened, but no words came. Behind her, Haley peeked from her doorway, silent, wide-eyed, hugging herself as though she already sensed the collapse. When the truck was full, I drove it not to a storage unit, not to a dump, but to Tom's place. His house was smaller, worn, the paint peeling from the siding, the yard overgrown. I pulled up and began unloading, stacking the furniture, the gadgets, the receipts in neat piles on his porch. When he finally came to the door, rubbing his eyes, still half asleep, I looked him in the face and said the words I had carried for years. "If you're the one they want in charge, then take responsibility." He stared at the pile, then at me, confusion turning to anger. "What the hell is all this?" "It's yours now," I replied, flat and cold. "Everything I bought for them, every bill I covered, every receipt I kept. If they see you as the father, then you can shoulder what that means." He sputtered something about not having the space, not having the money, about how I was overreacting. I didn't wait to hear the end. I got back into my truck and drove away, leaving the fragments of my sacrifices on his porch like an unwanted inheritance. When I returned home, Emily was there, her phone clutched in her hand, tears streaking down her face. The girls hovered behind her, their expressions caught between anger and fear. "What have you done?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "Tom can't handle this. He has no money, no space." The girls are crying. "They don't understand." "I understand," I interrupted. My voice was calm, steady, merciless. "They wanted him to be the father. Now they have him. Let them live with that." Her tears flowed freely then, her words tumbling out in broken pleas. "Please, they're just kids. They didn't mean it. They don't know what they're saying." But I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret. Only peace. For years I had been a ghost in my own home, the invisible provider who was denied the very title they still bestowed on a man who abandoned them. Now, finally, the balance was restored. The days that followed were a blur of tension and silence. Emily tried to repair the damage, tried to convince me to return the items, to resume the role I had carried. The girls sulked, cried, threw accusations like stones. None of it moved me. Then, weeks later, something arrived that did. A letter. It came in a plain envelope, the handwriting on the front neat but unfamiliar. When I opened it, I found Haley's words carefully written across the page. She admitted she hadn't appreciated what I had done until now, that only in the absence of my support had she begged N to understand the weight I carried. She wrote of her regret, her shame, her wish that she had said thank you more often. I read the letter once, twice, 3 times. And then I placed it carefully into the same folder where I kept all the receipts and documents, not as ammunition, not as proof for some future argument, but as a reminder. A reminder that when people believe your support is something they are owed, they will never value it. It is only in its absence that they begin to see the truth. And by then, it is already too late. I kept the letter folded in my desk drawer, tucked neatly between the receipts and the contracts that proved what had been mine and what had been taken. Some nights, I would open it, trace the careful lines of Haley's handwriting, and wonder whether the words had been born of true understanding, or simply the desperation of a child who realized her safety net was gone. Emily called me often in those weeks. First, it was anger. Shouts through the phone, accusations hurled like stones. "You're cruel. You're heartless. You abandoned us." Later, her tone shifted to pleading, bargaining, soft appeals whispered through tears. "Just come back. Just make things the way they were." But there was no way things were. That illusion had burned the night she shouted, "You're not their father." The fire had consumed everything: patience, tolerance, blind hope. What remained was ash, and in that ash, clarity. I had walked through that house for years as a ghost. I had been mocked, ignored, dismissed. My labor was demanded, my sacrifices expected, my presence tolerated at best. And when the girls declared me nothing, when Emily confirmed it, I finally listened. Nothing. If that was what I was, then I would live as such. The weeks dragged on, and the fractures widened. Madison's anger boiled over into venom. Messages sent to my phone, full of curses and accusations. She wrote once, "You've ruined our lives. You'll pay for this." I didn't reply. Haley stayed quiet, her letter the only olive branch extended. But silence followed. Emily tried to hold the pieces together, but without my money, without my authority, the house grew restless, unstable. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, a quiet place with bare walls and no echoes of slammed doors. At night, the silence was deafening at first, but gradually it became something else. Peace. It was then that Emily showed up at my door. Her eyes were hollow, her face worn thin from sleepless nights. She carried no anger this time, only exhaustion. "We can't keep going like this," she said, her voice low, broken. "The girls need stability. They need you." I let her words hang in the air, heavy with the weight of everything left unsaid. I thought of the countless times she had excused their cruelty. I thought of the moment she had stripped me of the only role I had claimed in their lives. And I thought of Haley's letter, of the flicker of acknowledgement it carried, fragile as smoke. "Need me?" I repeated. "Or need my money?" Her silence was answer enough. I shook my head. "You made your choice, Emily. You drew the line. You told me I wasn't their father. You don't get to cross it now that the bills are due." Her tears fell freely then, her body trembling. She whispered, "I was wrong." But apologies, I had learned, were currency spent too late. I closed the door gently, leaving her on the other side. The girls reached out in their own ways afterward. Madison with anger, Haley with hesitation. Haley wrote again, shorter this time. "I didn't realize what you did for us. I'm sorry." The words should have softened me. Once they might have. But apologies without respect are just words scribbled on paper, fragile and empty. One evening, I sat in my apartment with the folder open before me. Receipts, documents, Haley's letters. I studied them like evidence in a trial, weighing each piece against the years of silence, the nights of humiliation, the countless sacrifices erased with the words, "You're not our dad." The verdict was clear. I wasn't their father. Not in their eyes. Not in Emily's. Not in the only way that mattered. And so, I chose to live the truth they had spoken into me. I severed every tie. Bank accounts closed. Numbers blocked. Emails unanswered. The house, the car, the furniture, all mine, all gone from them. I left them with what they had always claimed. Their real father. Let them look to him when the world demanded more than he could give. Let them taste the consequences of their own words. The peace that followed wasn't happiness. It wasn't joy. It was colder than that, quieter. It was the peace of a man who had finally stopped lying to himself. And yet, sometimes, in the stillness of my apartment, I find my hand drifting to the drawer, unfolding Haley's letter once more. Her words linger, not because they undo the past, but because they remind me of a possibility that might have been. If respect had been there from the beginning, if gratitude had bloomed even once, perhaps the story would have ended differently. But it didn't. The moral, I suppose, is simple. When people believe your support is owed, they will consume it until you are hollow. They will never thank you, never respect you, never acknowledge the cost until you take it away. And by then, it is already too late. So I ask you, the only witnesses left to this confession, was I wrong? Was I cruel to walk away, to strip the house bare, to let them live with the father they chose? Or was this the only justice left for a man who gave everything and was told he was nothing? Tell me, what would you have done? It was 3 months after I left the house that the knock came. I had settled into a rhythm by then. My apartment was small but orderly, stripped of noise, stripped of demands. Each evening I returned to silence, a silence I had once mistaken for loneliness but had come to treasure. It was not empty. It was clean. For the first time in years, I could hear my own thoughts without interruption. The knock broke that silence. Slow, deliberate, a rhythm that carried hesitation. I almost didn't answer, but something in me, curiosity perhaps, pulled me to the door. Emily stood there. Her face was pale, thinner than I remembered, her eyes swollen from sleepless nights. Beside her stood Haley, clutching a backpack like a child preparing to run away. Madison lingered a few steps back, arms crossed, her jaw tight, her body vibrating with the same anger she had always carried toward me. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Emily's voice broke the stillness. "Can we come in?" I didn't move. My hand remained on the doorframe, my body filling the space like a barrier. "Why?" Her lips trembled. "Because we need to talk." I let them in, not out of kindness, not out of hope, but out of a cold sense of duty. If there was going to be a reckoning, it would happen on my terms, in my space. They sat awkwardly on the couch I had once bought for their living room, now placed against the far wall of my apartment. Emily wrung her hands. Haley's eyes darted around the room, avoiding mine. Madison glared at the floor, refusing even to acknowledge me. It was Haley who spoke first. Her voice was soft, uncertain. "I meant what I wrote in the letter." She pulled another folded piece of paper from her bag, placed it on the coffee table, and slid it toward me. "I've been thinking about everything, about how I treated you, about how much you did for us. I didn't see it before, but I do now." Her words hung in the air like fragile glass, ready to shatter. Emily added quickly, "We've been struggling. Tom, he doesn't help. He never did. I see that now. And I see what you carried all those years. I should have defended you. I should have stopped the girls when they disrespected you. I didn't. That's my failure." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. Their words might have moved me once, but now they sounded like echoes arriving too late, when the house was already burned to the ground. "You're right," I said flatly. "You failed." Emily flinched. Haley's eyes filled with tears. Madison shifted in her seat, muttering, "We wouldn't even be here if Mom hadn't made us." That was all I needed to hear. The contempt remained, alive and well. It always would. I stood slowly, towering over them, my voice cold. "Do you think gratitude scribbled on paper undoes years of contempt? Do you think tears erase the moment you looked me in the eye and told me I was nothing? Respect isn't something you discover when the money runs dry. It's something you give freely every day without being told." Haley whispered, "I'm sorry." I shook my head. "No, you're scared. There's a difference." Emily rose, her hands reaching for mine. "Please, just come back. Just help us get through this. Things will be different." Pulled away. "No, Emily, things won't be different, because the truth already revealed itself. You stood by when they mocked me. You excused their cruelty. You told me yourself that I wasn't their father. You can't take those words back. And I won't let you." Silence filled the room. Madison's glare faltered for the first time, replaced by something closer to panic. Haley buried her face in her hands. Emily shook her head slowly, as if she had always known this moment would end this way. I walked to the door and opened it. The gesture was final, unyielding. "Leave." Emily hesitated, her lips parting to speak, but no words came. She gathered the girls, guiding them toward the hallway. Haley paused at the threshold, her tear-streaked face lifting to meet mine. "Will you ever forgive me?" she asked. I looked at her, my voice sharp but steady. "Forgiveness isn't a word. It's a life lived differently. Until then, there is nothing to forgive." She nodded faintly, then followed her mother and sister into the hall. When the door shut behind them, the silence returned, thicker now, heavier. But it was mine. That night, I sat with the new letter Haley had left on the table. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I slid it into the folder with the others, where it joined the receipts, the contracts, the evidence of a life I had carried alone. That folder is my testimony, my archive, not of what I lost, but of what I endured, and of the line I finally drew. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what will become of them. Whether Haley will grow into her words, whether Madison will ever shed her anger, whether Emily will ever confront the silence she fed. But those are no longer my burdens to carry. I chose peace, and peace means severance. So I ask you, anyone who reads these words, anyone who stands in judgment of me, was I wrong to close the door? To leave them to the father they claimed, to the life they demanded? Or was I finally right to stop playing a role they refused to give me? You tell me, because I already know my answer.